changes. A lot of folks are highlighting the financial services industry to benefit from a lot of policy changes. The absolute author on all of the Bloomberg Intelligence work on this is Nathan Dean, Senior Policy Analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. Nathan, I know you guys have gamed this out. You've kind of looked at financial industry, some of the regulations that it's dealing with now and that are still kind of on the table. What do you think here with what we've seen here with the elections?
Yeah, so, with the financial services industry, it all came down to this rule called the Basel III Endgame. As outlined by the Fed, you're talking about a 9% increase for the G-SIBs, the Bank of America, JP Morgans, if you will, about 3 to 4% in terms of the regional banks. Now, with President Trump winning, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is likely going to flip on day one of next year. So this rule is effectively indefinitely delayed. You would need the Fed, the OCC, and the FDIC to move forward. Now, we think a 30% chance of it being finalized by 2026. The reason why we're not down to zero is because there is potential out there that a Republican-led regulator may try and move forth with it, but the idea is going to be completely different, and they're going to essentially start from scratch. So if you're talking about capital requirements on a global scale, remember the European banks have already implemented their version of this. There could be some questions here on if the Americans aren't going to do this, why should the Europeans on the same side? So certainly a lot to play here in terms of the deregulatory efforts amongst the investment banks.
Nathan Dean, you are the consummate Washington insider. When I need to get my what-ifs answered about what's happening in Washington, I call you. So I have a question here. What names should I be looking at more closely than others? Bill Ackman, Elon Musk, Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick. I mean, talk to us about what the potential for a Trump cabinet may very well look like.
Yeah, so, obviously the big question here is, you going to get the Wall Street President Trump, or are you going to get a populist President Trump? And that's the question that I don't think anybody really has an answer to, because, for example, at the SEC, you have Commissioner Hester Peirce, who I think would be a very popular SEC chair coming from more of the conservative wing, the populist side of the party. But then there's also going to be folks like former Jay Clayton, obviously his name's been in there for Treasury. But, somebody like a disciple, if you will, of Commissioner or Chairman Clayton could be also named at the SEC. So the question that we have, and we should find out about this more over the next few weeks, is are you going to get the populist Trump or the Wall Street Trump? And I think you're probably going to get a combination of the both, where if President Trump cares about your issue in terms of he specifically wants to be involved, you'll get a populist Trump. If it's something where he's happy to delegate to other folks in Washington, then I think you may get a Wall Street Trump.
Well, Nathan, it took a long time for Trump to pick his cabinet and his players back the first time around. Apparently, he's much more prepared this time. Talk to us about timing around some of those selections. When can we expect to hear something there?
Yeah, so I think you're going to hear it probably within the next few weeks. I mean, to your point, they've been talking about this for some time. But I would also note that the Republicans have somewhere between 52, potentially as much as 56 seats in the Senate. And as a result, the Republican Senate is going to be able to confirm a lot of President Trump's appointees on a much quicker basis than if you were to have a Democrat-controlled Senate or even a 50 or 51. Now, why do we care about this? Well, because the faster that those regulatory leaders come in place, the faster they can start these deregulatory efforts. A regulatory leader, for the most part, can't just come in and say, right, this regulation, we're going to just completely roll it back on day one. It's going to take 9 months, 12 months, if not even 2 years to move forth on that effort. So the quicker those regulatory leaders come in place, the quicker the deregulatory effort can take place.
Red headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal. Harris to deliver remarks at Howard University at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we will have more reporting on that. Nathan, is President-elect Trump, is he a lame duck president? Is that a fair way to look at it?
No, so generally, and I say this generally, in the second term of a presidential term, if you will, think President Obama or President George W. Bush, you usually have about 18 months to expend your political capital. First 100 days of the presidency is critical. But as soon as Congress begins to think about their midterm elections, and then as the result, when they come back, why should they stick their necks out for the president who's going to be gone? So what do presidents tend to do? They tend to go internationally and they tend to travel because the power of the presidency is more powerful there. So, we do think President Trump is going to be spending a lot of time abroad, Ukraine, Middle East, for example, China. There's a lot of stuff that he can do there, but I wouldn't call him a lame duck just yet because, again, the power of the presidency is more powerful there.
Nathan, it took till 10:32 a.m. Eastern time this morning for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs to congratulate President-elect Donald Trump. You know that China tariffs are coming. You're a betting man. What kind of tariff regime do you think we're entering into? Is it going to be that 10% broad? Is it going to be 60% on China? What are you hearing?
So this is where I think the process of tariff is key. Now, remember, let's just say January 20th, president comes in, you see a red line over the terminal, you say President Trump signs an executive order saying tariffs are coming. In the language of that executive order, however, I think you'll see language that says the tariff is not coming for 270 days or 365 days. Why? Because tariffs are negotiation tools. President Trump doesn't know what the reciprocal tariff on China from China would be, and President Trump wants to use this as a negotiation. So I think there's going to be language in there allowing flexibility, allowing President Trump to come back and say, maybe not 60%, maybe we'll go to 10% because China gave us a win or something like that. So what we're saying is watch out for that headline risk in the first or second quarter of next year, but then you're going to get probably 6 months to actually truly understand what that tariff will look like before it goes into fruition.
All right, Nathan, as always, thank you very much for your analysis. Nathan Dean, Senior Policy Analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. You can find all of Nathan's research at BIGO on the terminal. He really boils down some of this very difficult policy minutia into something that real people can understand and use.
Yeah, no, he's the best. I mean, I mean, look, I'm an emerging market guy when it comes to the U.S., when it comes to Washington politics. He is my first port of call. But, I'm going to go back to my hole, and I'm going to wait for the Brazilian Central Bank to meet in a few hours' time